Hi there, this is Daniel, and this is the conclusion of Daniel the Freshman. I slept surprisingly well the night before our opening night. I awoke in the morning feeling refreshed and ready for the day and the performance. I breezed through the classes, and in between classes, the day seemed charged with an invisible energy. I didn't work that day, so when I was finished with classes, I went right over to the theater. I could check lights and maybe get some instruction on the makeup. When I arrived at the theater, Truman was there, but no one else had arrived. I asked Truman about the makeup, and he walked me back to the boys' dressing room, where he brought out the makeup and began apologizing immediately. Not really to me, but more just in general. I found out today that all we have is grease paint makeup. He took out a tube that looked like toothpaste tube on steroids. He took the top off, rubbed some on his hand, and held it by my face. "Well, you're not playing an Indian tonight, so that is too dark," followed by Truman's deep trademark laugh. "Let me get another." He dug around in what appeared to be a fishing tackle box and pulled out another steroid drug tube. He squeezed some out on the other hand and rubbed some on the side of my face. I, so far, sat silent and apprehensive. "That looks much better. Turn around and look." "What do you think?" Truman asks. I turn toward the mirror, look at both cheeks, and say, "The last one matches better, but I just don't like the idea of wearing makeup, Truman. Is it something I have to do?" Truman laughed under his breath, sighs, and says, "Only if you want to be seen, Daniel," and continues, "That theater is a barn, and if you don't project, they will never hear you. If you don't wear makeup, they will never see your face. You will have a flat face, and no one will be able to see you act." Okay. I hadn't thought about it that way. I very much wanted everyone to see me. That's the whole point of, acting, is being seen. "Okay," I said. I hadn't really thought about it like that before. Then, for some odd reason, I opened up to Truman and told him something I'd never told another teacher or anyone outside my family. I mean, I get picked on enough. I just don't want to get beat up for wearing makeup. There was a noticeable catch in Truman's breathing. Yes, he had heard me and understood. He just looked at me with those huge, deep eyes and said, "Daniel, anyone that picks on you or makes fun of you for wearing makeup in a play is just stupid. Ignore them." He was right. I had heard similar from my father. Seems bullies just don't mind being stupid. Shortly after the last bell, everyone started showing up. There was a great hustle and bustle backstage, and there was an energy forming in that theater. As the afternoon wore into evening and curtain time drew ever closer, that energy became palatable. I wasn't the only one that felt it either. You could see the energy in most everyone's eyes and hear it in their voices. A mixture of anxiousness and glee that I soon discovered was intoxicating. As people filed into the theater, I was taught some new lessons. First, never, ever look into the audience and be seen. That was just poor form. Second, you never wish an actor before a performance good luck. It is good show or break a leg. Good luck resulted in bad luck. Last and most important, be quiet. When you're off stage during a performance, you don't make a sound. No talking, no horseplay, no texting, nothing. This is serious business. 5 minutes, we hear Truman say backstage. No one responds. Actually, for a second, I think everyone froze. Wherever we were, whatever we were doing, we froze. We were 5 minutes from the start of a show that we had worked on for months. We were in makeup, surprising to some of us, in costume. We knew our lines, we knew our blocking, and we knew our cues. This was no dress rehearsal. People had actually paid to see us perform. I wasn't nervous, but my heart was sure getting loud in my chest. I stepped outside the theater and into the hallway by the band hall. Just then, Truman breezed by, with most of the cast following him quietly. "Follow us, Daniel," Truman said as he passed me. He had a smile on his face that could have lit up the city of New York, it was so bright. There was a bounce in his step, a smile on his face, and a power in his heart that, not known to me yet, he was about to share with us all. The entire cast was now in the band hall, and we were forming a circle holding hands. There was that darned electricity again. It was thick with us in the band hall. I swear I could feel my hair standing up on the back of my neck, like in a lightning storm. The rumbling of Truman's voice interrupts my thoughts. "We only have a couple of moments, but I wanted to call you all in here to share something with you." We were all feeling it, and small conversations broke out in the circle. Then Truman began again. "There is a tradition I learned in theater, a tradition that teaches us. Tonight, we are unique. Tonight, we are the best at this play in the entire world. We are unique in that no one else on the planet can do this play the way we do. And then that uniqueness gives us magic. There is magic in the theater, and the theater is magic." Oh, if there is a single person in that room that didn't have goosebumps, I would be very much surprised. We were all smiling big too, and so hard. I remember going home later that night. My cheeks were so very sore. We stood in that circle now and repeated after Truman. "There is magic in the theater, and the theater is magic. There is magic in the theater, and the theater is magic." If we had all started lifting off the ground at that moment, I honestly don't think anyone would have been surprised. We all felt it now, and a lot of us felt lightheaded. I know I did. We stopped chanting and threw our arms up in one final magic, and then we orderly and quietly moved back into theater and took our places. "1 minute, everyone, 1 minute!" Truman's voice rumbled backstage, yet not loud enough to be heard by the audience now being seated. While everyone else was filing back into the theater, I ran as fast as I could to the water fountain by the choir room. I drank deep and long. I was 16, and I wasn't about to have my voice break on my first line of my high school acting career. The water, well, it didn't want to stay. I dashed into the boys' bathroom, hit the urinal, out the door. As I'm running, literally running from the glass double doors to the stage door downstage right of the theater, past the band hall, I hear the opening threads of the show. I have about 10 seconds to get in place, or I'm going to miss my very first performance cue. I pass the doors to the theater. I can hear the orchestra clearly now, and I whip to the right into the doors of the backstage entrance. I am so lucky. 2 people were standing at the doors holding them open. Now, they weren't supposed to be doing that, but I was very happy they were there. I darted into the double doors, jumped up the stairs onto the stage. Now I moved briskly and quietly into place, downstage right, where the apron meets the curtain. As I step into my place, I hear, "My cue! Dawn is arguing with the man which she's with, and she gets pushed into a fake lake. I jump out on the bench on stage and say, 'There's a girl down in that lake. I think she's drowning.' I turn towards the audience, and as I point into the orchestra pit, I hear the audience laughing. Laughing loudly. Laughing loudly for a long time, and no one speaking. Everything starts slowing down at this point in my memory, and in that moment. The theater is cold, just like Doc's classroom. It is cold in the theater, and it's cold on the stage. Suddenly, I feel a breeze. Yeah, let's say a breeze. I feel coolness where it shouldn't be. I feel a breeze, and my pants are getting cold. I look down. Now remember, this is my very first line in front of a paying audience. And I look down at my fly, and my fly is down. I don't panic. That's the rule. You don't panic. So I look back up at the audience. I look down at my fly, and I pull it up. I look back up at the audience, give them a sheepish grin, and shrug my shoulders. Then I turn back upstage to the student with the next line, not missing a beat, but on bump. He didn't have a chance. The boy with the next line, because the audience became unplugged. I just stood there, looking up stage left, holding my breath. They laughed so hard and for so long, and we all just stood there, smiling. Dawn was down in the pit, and she was standing down there, smiling at me, really smiling. The boy, the next boy with the line on stage, he was just standing there, smiling, and the audience laughed and clapped. Shortly, it died down, and the play went on. As soon as the curtain went down on that scene, I was mobbed backstage. I had created quite a stir going on stage with my fly down and then pulling it up in front of the audience. I now was the bad boy of the play. The attention died quickly as each person was called on to perform. That night, a handful of people changed. They touched another reality that they helped create. That night, the show went on without a single hitch, beyond my wardrobe malfunction. And then after the play, that night, there were notes. After a performance. We didn't often get notes after a performance. But tonight, we were getting notes. I was sweating bullets. I mean, really. I walked on stage with my fly down. Would I even have a role in the play after tonight? We gathered on the apron in the first 2 rows of seats. A lot of people were pointing at me and laughing. I would have been embarrassed, but it was just too funny to me. Truman and Doc came down and sat on the front row. The first comments were from Doc, for Dawn. Something about staging or getting out of the pit in Act 1. Then Truman had some notes for people not projecting well enough. Then there was snickering, and at each pause in the notes, there was snickering, and these 2 guys just kept looking at me and laughing. Then it was time for Truman's notes for me. Daniel, in Act 1, Scene 1, you had a problem with your fly? It was like someone uncorked a juvenile genie, and the laughter just came pouring out. Now everyone was laughing and going, "Way to go, Daniel." I look over and I see that Doc and Truman are laughing too. I'm not bothered, don't get me wrong. Strangely, I'm not embarrassed. The laughter's dying down when Truman speaks again. Doc and I agreed, Daniel. Keep it. Keep the bit with the zipper. The cast just breaks up into uproarious laughter and kudos. I get slapped on the back innumerable times that night. My very first performance is a cameo performance. Then Doc spoke to me. I remember I told you to speak up and make an impression. Then he turns to speak to everybody else. I guess that Daniel is listening to my notes. Another wave of laughter passes over the cast. A huge weight lifts from my shoulders, and I could feel from the cast too. I don't think anyone in the cast wanted me to get into trouble for my wardrobe problem. They just wanted to laugh about it and share in some of the fun. I am relieved by how Truman and Doc react. Honestly, if I'm not really surprised, it was a mistake, right? I had Doc ask me that very question later that year. Was it really a mistake? No, I'll tell you what I told Doc. I'm not saying I don't want to get in trouble. Doc laughed. This brings us to the very absolute end of the episode Daniel the Freshman. Be sure to come back on Wednesday for the next episode of the story of Daniel. Thank you again, everyone, for all your kindness and support. And as always, I'd like to tell you, may God bless.